Although this is a virtual meeting, we will attempt to record, stream live, and publish in accordance with Council's electronic recording of meeting policy. Due to the pandemic and the requirements for social distancing, to keep you safe, we are not able to allow the public to attend this meeting. Normally, by attending an open public meeting of the municipality of Southwest Middlesex, you are consenting to your image, voice, and/or comments being recorded. Today's meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel and website. Council, Chief Sewell, how are you? Good to see you. Council, any declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will declare that. It's good to see Mary Gaze on now. It's good to see her. We are going to staff reports now, Council, but just before I hand it over to Kristen, I want to thank all of you for coming this afternoon. Chief Sewell, your attendance is certainly welcome. Kristen and staff are presenting a vision to Council that they hope will culminate in a competitive tax rate. And Kristen will give more details on this later. The proposal would maintain our level of service. Despite a decrease of $110,000 in provincial funding, we would still be in the game and enable us to sustain those services. I encourage all council to ask Kristen questions through the chair. We want to make sure that we have engagement on this. And Kristen, I will hand it over to you for your operating budget recap.
All right. Has everybody had a chance to review the updated presentation? Yes. Did you want to go through that? Is probably the best way to go.
Yep, you drive it with what, yeah.
Jill, can I share? Pretty please. All right. Is everybody seeing the recap screen?
Yep, we are.
Okay. So the first slide here is a recap. So at the November 25th council meeting, we looked at the results of the budget survey, the capital budget proposals, and the operating budget presentation. And then at the December 2nd meeting, council discussed the Wardsville Storm Sewer Project and voted to pursue the project through the Drainage Act. So I removed $319,461 from the capital section of the project and put $100,000 into the operating expenses to cover our portion of that project. Council also elected to remove the budget for the paving of the municipal lot between Symes and McKellar. So today, we'll recap where we currently stand and offer remaining proposals to get to a 1% tax increase. If council decides not to be at 1%, that's obviously totally fine too. And if council so chooses, we could pass a motion and I could bring a bylaw forward to adopt a tax rate. So that's where we go here. So changes from the prior meeting. There has been a mechanical breakdown at the Glencoe Fire Hall requiring staff to reconsider the $25,000 proposed heating enhancement. So Chief Sewell will be able to speak to this, but it'll cost an additional $25,000. So in the current year's budget, the salaries were under budget by, I think, don't have the final amounts, but at least 25,000. So I can reserve from 2020 into 2021 so that we don't have to raise more taxes for this new project. I don't know if if the chief wants to speak to this now, or whether you want me to continue to take you through the presentation and then we can get an
Yeah.
update from the chief.
I suggest you continue with the presentation, Kristen,
All right.
and you can address that. That way we're focused.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so where we're at right now, the assessment growth is still an increase of 60,000. The revenue is still a decrease of 110,000, sorry. And now the expenses are an increase of 126,000. So that leaves us with 176,873 required to balance the budget, which is a tax rate increase of 1.82, which would be $3.96 a month, or $47 a year for the average homeowner. Again, the 1% tax increase represents 97,000. So in order to bring us down to a 1% tax increase, council will need to decrease the funds, decrease expenses by $79,424. So the items of interest are exactly, this is the same slide as was in the last presentation. I checked the consumer price index yesterday, and November is still not posted. And we've discussed the impact deferral, the insurance industry increase, the OCIF formula fund amount. We haven't gotten an official confirmation that we can divulge publicly anyways at this point. So, but we don't currently have anything in the budget that we're raising taxes for that these funds would be paying for. So once we do get confirmation of that, we can bring that back to council and elect to expand certain projects. Like this funding is only meant for core infrastructure assets, sorry, which would be roads, bridges, and sidewalks, or water and sewer programs. This next slide is, you could see this, I think, in our first presentation. So just, this is the change, an explanation of the change in the year-over-year budget. And the items highlighted in yellow are really the items that council has still some wiggle room with if they chose. The items that are not highlighted are committed funds that we can't change at this point. So the decrease in revenues, we don't have any say over. Wages and benefits are already voted and done. The computer IT, so Questica and eScribe are an increase in the budget, or new projects proposed for this year. Questica is a budgeting software, and eScribe is a council agenda package. And the eScribe, Jill could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we wouldn't have any program. We need to purchase some kind of a program or software to do the agendas, because the one that we're currently using is not supported any longer. So we need some type of a solution there. We've had 2 donation requests come in that we didn't have last year, one for the Quest Center and one for the Women's Rural Resource Center. Say that quickly. The branding, I know that one, I wasn't sure whether I should highlight that one or not. I know council's kind of asked us to move forward with that, so that's already, I guess, been kind of directed, I guess I should say. We've got a budget in there for LPAT tribunal defense costs. If we don't need it, we won't have to use it. And the official plan and the community improvement plan, again, council has indicated that they wish to move forward with that, so that's in there. The next few debentures, we don't really have any say in that. We've committed to the projects. The projects were approved in last year's budget, so the debenture cost is an increase over the previous year. And the Wardsville sewers were decided at our last meeting, and the OPP costs have decreased by 27,000. Fire training expenses have decreased, but there was a significant amount put in last year for training for DZ licenses, so we expected that decrease. Reserves and reserve funds, we've decreased what we're putting away, and capital is a decrease now since we removed the projects last night. And then the last slide shows what council would propose, or I'm sorry, what staff would propose if council wishes to get to a 1% tax rate.
Okay. Kristen, walk us through that last slide.
Okay, sure. So we did get some bids on the rec master plan, and that is going to cost more than we had initially anticipated. So there's 30,000 in additional budget that we're looking for that. Accessible parking, we had originally asked for 60, but I think Greg feels that we could put some solutions in place for 40, so we can decrease what we had put away, or what we had proposed for that, by 20,000.
And just to clarify that culminated in the decision of going from Main Street to side streets. I believe that race was driven by that scenario.
Yes, sir. App and parking and the bleacher projects were removed. The train station deck would be a higher cost than we had initially projected, so there's an increased budget for that. The Historical Society roof, we took that back to a repair, like a general repair, for 5,000 rather than the full replacing with a metal roof. And then just to balance everything off, I put 7,575 back into the sidewalk reserve budget.
Okay.
I bet I just got home from school here. Hello.
That all adds up to the figures that you were hoping to target. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Kristen, anything further?
Nope, sorry, he just wanted to come in and tell me he's home and he loves me.
Okay, that's worth more than money. That's worth more than money.
Yes, it is.
Council, you've had that chance to go through this. Kristen has highlighted it briefly here. Certainly the floor is open to questions. If you no longer need that screen, Kristen or Jill, take it off and we can see everybody. That's good. And council, please, we have lots of time to ask. I hope to get done this meeting by 5:30 so we can have a break. I think we all need it probably after that. So we'll kind of target that, but we have questions here. Councillor Scholdice, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. The provincial government announced earlier today increased funding for municipalities. Do we know, or when will we know what our share will be?
So I am working on an application today for COVID funding, and our allotment, should it be approved, would be 124,000 and change. So I'm hoping that if we apply for that, we could apply for even the roof, and that part of that was being funded through the taxes. So
this is in relation to today's earlier announcement?
I would have to look to see if it's the same stream. Jill, I'm not sure if you know that off the top of your head.
He's looking.
There.
So there was which news release are you referencing, Councillor Scholdice? So there's been a few with respect to COVID and providing assistance.
It was entitled Ontario Provides More Financial Relief for Municipalities During COVID-19, dated December 16th, 2020.
So that
through the Ontario.
that announcement was made today. So Mike is correct. I'm not sure if it is the same funding stream that we were looking at, Kristen.
I don't believe it is. I think it's something new.
Okay.
It's good.
695 million for municipalities.
Yeah, and basically what they were saying was that they were going to support every municipality in Ontario so that they had and produced a balanced budget moving forward. And in that COVID did not cause an unbalanced budget.
Yep.
So, and part of the funding that they announced as well has been part of the release relates to social services also. So I suspect there was discussion around that at County Council, perhaps, Mayor Mayhew.
Mhm. Yep.
We'll certainly keep that in mind to apply for anything that any streams that open up. We did get the one bulk amount, the 154,000, I think it was, and I'll definitely apply for this additional amount.
If I could just have a quick follow-up.
By all means, Councillor Crothers will get to you. Mike, go ahead with your follow-up.
Thank you. I just wondered if we should hold off setting our tax rate until we know what amount of funding we'll be getting, because it looks like it could be a fairly sizable chunk. Like it could be more than 1%.
It could be. We could still set the tax rate, and we accept it in principle. And then if that money comes in, that it'll be adjusted accordingly, no doubt. But we can. I think even if we got, and with the modifications council wish to move, and if we're in agreement with those modifications, we could have an acceptance in principle of a capital budget. And then any additional monies that come in would lower the tax burden on the municipality. We don't have to, if we wait for provincial government, we could be waiting for a very long time. Very often it takes a great length of time between the time they announce the money and the time we get it in our bank account. And we've experienced that. This council has experienced that, and I don't have to draw examples to that subject, but it would, I think, unnecessarily hold up the governance responsibility if we waited for an application to be approved. If that money is forthcoming, it'll go towards the benefit of the taxpayer. Mike, Kristen, go ahead if you can answer that, or am I right on the right track?
Well, what I would do, Council, is if we agreed on a tax rate and the projects that you would like to move forward with, if we ended up getting this funding in 2021, we could reserve it, and then I wouldn't change the tax rate mid-year or the budget. I would likely reserve it, and then council can elect to put that towards 2022 projects, or which will impact the tax rate for 2022, or bring back proposals of projects that we had put on hold or deferred for the amount of those funds, would be my suggestion.
All right, well, we can talk about that. Thank you, Councillor Crothers, for your patience there. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, the Mayor. I did have a conversation with Harold Crothers at the Historical Society about possibility of patching the roof and maybe getting through another period of time. It is in bad shape. There's shingles that are actually sections that have come off, and this phone went off. There's sections that have actually come off, and there's areas where the gravel is worn right off the shingles. So I apologize for my stupid phone. I thought I had it turned off. But that was one thought, was possibility of repair if anything looks like it's going to leak, and then just see what happens down the road. And another issue, the train station deck. The problem there is not so much the decking itself. It's probably got a little time left on it, but it's the structure underneath, the steel structure, that's deteriorated very badly. And I'm just suggesting that it may be possible to just make sure that's shored up properly. The rec fellows have gone under there and put in various supports that's holding it where it is now, and it may need a little more or whatever, but that possibly may be able to be deferred you may be able to divert farther down the road. So that's just what I had in mind anyway. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to determine who's that. Oh,
Yeah,
it's Greg.
sorry, Mary Ellen, it was me.
Okay.
I was in the dark.
Greg.
A couple of things. So through you, Mary Ellen, to Councillor Crothers, the queue at the old library, that would be the roof.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit.
Would that be just the flat roof that you're speaking about?
No, it's the pitched roof. It's the shingle part. The flat roof, I've never heard anything about it. It's the shingle part. The shingles are very, you just do a drive-by, you can see it right from the road. There's a lot of very deteriorated. But it may be able to be saved. Big issue there is that area is actually their vault storage area for a lot of basically irreplaceable documents and artifacts, and definitely don't want any leaks. Now, the Herald said there has been no sign of a leak yet, so it may be able to be held over for a while, but that would be up to a roofer, I suppose, to go up and then actually inspect it close up and see what he thought, get an opinion.
Through you, Mary Ellen, I think we could have a look at, looking at the roof to see if it could be repaired. If it couldn't be repaired, then to replace it with asphalt at this particular point, asphalt shingles, just for the protection of inside the building. I'm not sure I would recommend a steel roof at this particular point, considering I don't even know, how long the building's going to be with us either. So, so certainly I can look into that and see if that's a possibility.
Well, I think
I just thought, well, if there was problems with the flat roof, we're going to have a fair bit of flat roof work going on at the township building anyway, so we could look at that one as well.
Yep. Ian, a follow-up question? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know anything about the flat roof, but part of the conversation with Harold was the possibility of just going with the asphalt, and that would save some money at this point in time, and it would be down the road that somebody else would have to figure out.
Okay.
Then.
Yeah. Kristen's suggestion here, she has taken that out. Council, thank you, Ian. Council, feel free to ask any further questions. Yes, Councillor Scholdice. Actually, Councillor Vink, please, and then on deck, Councillor Scholdice. Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was listening to Kristen saying about we have nothing designated for the OCIF fund. So I wonder why we couldn't take some of the sidewalk money out and apply the OCIF funding for that, and that would lower the tax rate.
Kristen, you follow Martin on that request if you want to attempt an answer?
I do. I'm just pulling up that we have proposed to pay for the sidewalks out of, in the budget, we have 103,821 in sidewalk capital, and 80,000 will be funded through gas tax, and 23,821 will be funded through the previous year's OCIF funding. So nothing is being raised through the tax base for that.
For the sidewalks, okay.
That's what I meant by we could use it to expand projects like that, but we're not currently pulling anything out of the tax. We're not collecting anything in the tax rate that this funding could be applied to currently.
Okay. Councillor Scholdice has his hand up, followed by Deputy Mayor Wilkins, followed by Councillor McGill, followed by Jill. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just see that the community improvement plan has increased by $5,000 from 15,000 to 20,000. And I'm not sure if I missed that discussion or why is that increased?
Kristen, you'll have to address that.
I don't know if I.
It was on the slide, budget increase over last year.
Oh, and you know what? I think
I can probably speak to this.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is that we were, for this year, for 2020, the work being undertaken right now is the actual plan development. So Stan Tech has been engaged to do the plan. What's proposed with the 20,000 is if you're going to have a plan in place, then some amount of funding to undertake what it is that the plan will come through with. So this is just a draft amount for providing whatever incentives come through the plan for CIP. So as council knows, the only way you can provide any kind of financial incentives to businesses or commercial properties is by having a community improvement plan. So if you're going to have some incentives, usually most plans start with the some type of a matching funding for some works to be done on a private business. And so this would be a pot of money to help incentivize that kind of improvement to private development.
Yeah.
If I could just have a quick.
Mike, I'm going to get your follow-up question down the road because we got 3 speakers in front of you. I'll come back to you. I haven't forgot you. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So I do have a question, probably 2 of them, but I think it's important to note that Councillor Cowell had her hand up about the same time as Councillor Crothers did. So she should be taken next.
All right.
And then I would appreciate you coming back to me. Thank you.
I did not see Councillor Cowell's hand rising. Okay, Councillor Cowell, go ahead. I'm sorry I missed you.
It's okay. It was mostly what Kristen said when we talked about the funding and the funding rate. When we got the money from the Affordability and Efficiency Fund, it didn't impact that year's tax rate. It ended up impacting like 2020's tax rate with projects. So we did a whole bunch of projects, but those projects didn't impact the tax rate. So that was my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I appreciate that. And I realize it's probably hard for you to see everybody, so I just wanted to point it out. So I have a few questions, and I don't know who wants to take a stab at them, whether Jill would or Kristen would, but what would happen if we took half of the amount out of the fire master plan and put that aside and then put the rest in for next year, remove half this year? So we're not saying no to the plan altogether, but we're saying let's not move forward with it completely in 2021. Who wants to take a stab at that?
I have a comment.
Yep.
My comment would just be, and then if we did, is this a project that we could say, like, if some of that operation money comes and staff brings it back and says, well, with the money that's in reserves and the operational money, like, to add to build on what Mary Gay was saying, is that something we could do too?
Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Jill,
Okay, do you want Jill first?
no,
Kristen could probably speak to the tax rate implications.
person I'd like to call the chair. I can't listen to 3 people speak at the same time. Kristen, there's 2 councillors with questions here. If you could address them. Councillor Cowell was referring to the monies that may be coming in, and Deputy Mayor Wilkins was referring to splitting an entry in that over a period of 2 years. Could you address that question? And then I'll go to Jill for additional comments.
Okay, if we remove 12,500 from the tax rate this year to defer to next year, that'll bring the tax rate down to 1.69%. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
So Krista has asked.
Kristen was Deputy Mayor Wilkins was dividing the fire station plan into over a period of 2 years, reserving half and then commencing with the project in 22. I believe that was the question.
The fire master plan?
Yes, and actually Councillor Cowell has asked is if the monies do come through that you're applying for, Kristen, if they do come through, could that 12.5 be taken out of that to be put to it and then to be done next year?
Yeah, I believe that's understood. The question's understood. Yeah. Go ahead,
the funding that we're applying for COVID, we were going to apply for the roof.
Councillor Cowell?
It was the funding that Councillor Schuldeis mentioned that was operational in nature. I'm having an attempt to read it while also in this meeting so I can understand what's being recommended, kind of thing.
I think if additional monies come in that we haven't got a crystal ball, but should additional provincial monies come in, we have lots of areas to put them, and that would. And Jill's been patient. I'm going to get to you, Councillor Schuldeis, but there's other councillors with questions. Jill, go ahead.
I'm not done. I'm not done, Mayor Mayhew.
Chairman here, okay, and I think these people have had their hands up for a very long time, and we are taking. I'll come back to you within a minute. Deputy Mayor. Jill, I think you want to participate in the answer to these two questions, and that's why I'm giving you precedence on that.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Apologies if I'm stepping in, but the allocation that Councillor Schuldeis is referring to is a top-up, so different than the application that Kristen is working on with ICIP, that they have a specific stream now related to COVID-19. This is a top up to the Restart program that we have an agreement. So primarily the funding that was announced today is going to transit, from what I read, and our allocation is included in the press release. So I open that document, it's 31,000, but it is supposed to match the purpose of the Restart agreement. So I would say we were trying to match that with our initial allocation that we received, and the additional amount we would be getting based on this announcement is 31,000 in 2021.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Deputy Mayor Wilkins and then Councillor Schuldeis.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So I just want to touch base on Laurie McGill's letter. I realize you've got it next, but if I could, I'd like to just touch base on it a little bit. So I read the report twice, or the letter from Laurie twice. And a lot of what she says in there does make sense. She's got some very valid points. And I realize that you've, Mayor Mayhew, you and Greg have worked together on coming up with a figure for $40,000 for accessible parking spots on the side streets. I'm just going to wonder a bit out loud here if maybe we should just be putting 20,000 in that for this year. And let's sit down and get a plan together with the county and the businesses that will be affecting on the main street, and come back with a plan for 2021. That would take $20,000 out of the budget for this year. It's not saying we're not going to do it. I think it is important that we look at it, but we have no plan right now. And I just feel uncomfortable putting $40,000 of taxpayers' money into something that's going to be maybe willy-nilly. I'd rather see something done on the main street if it's appropriate. But I think we still need to do a lot of work before we get to that stage. And another comment I'd like to make, I think if we could find some dollars this year in the spring to maybe just paint lines on the main street for now, that might have a benefit to people that don't parallel park, that just pull into park and take up 2 spots. So that's concerns that have been raised to me by some members of the community. I suspect that holds true in Wardsville as well, and probably in Melbourne. So I'm just wondering, Greg, what it would take to just, in dollars and rough, I'm not expecting anything to be, you to be held to anything here, but just what would it cost to just paint some parking spaces on the main streets of our urban centers?
Through you, Mary Ellen, I don't know that I would be able to come up with I don't think it would be at a huge amount of money. Typically our relationship with the county is where we get our painting done from. Obviously that's something that can't happen right now, but there are also contractors out there that can do this type of work. So, I'm just trying to think back as, the things that I've gotten painted in the past by private contractors. We could probably get those particular lines put on there, maybe anywhere from 10 to 15,000. And that's just a guess at this particular point, but that would include, the parking areas in Appin, Melbourne, Wardsville, and Glencoe.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate that.
And, just before I get to Councillor Scholdice, in response to Deputy Mayor Wilkins, the adjective willy-nilly, there has been quite a dialogue between Chris Trainey and Alex McFarland, the accessibility coordinator for Middlesex County, Mr. McFarland, Sam McFarland. And so there has been dialogue with the County of Middlesex on this. What we did and where we saved the 20,000, and in reference to Mrs. McGill's letter, it was very well taken by Mr. Trainey and myself. Remarks went out thanking her for that. There was certainly knowledge and justification behind that. But Sam McFarland is looking at this very carefully. There is and not only that, part of this project was moving a school crossing on the south end of town that is just on the other side of a knoll on the highway in front of Waddix Fuels, where there's a blind spot where children walk across to the park house. So there has been county involvement in that. Sam McFarland will be doing a report on this. And I have no problem, Deputy Mayor, that if we can amortize this project over 2 years, I would be very supportive of that. But when I look around, I've spent my whole life looking at business communities, and I see, I'm not saying it's totally accessible. Sometimes they use the word handicap friendly, but when you look at Bothwell and Thamesville and Frank Street and Strathroy, there is parking for those with motor disabilities. And they are not van spots, but they are well used and well appreciated by the people. Councillor Scholdice, and I'll come back to Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. We seem to be covering a lot of ground quickly here. I just wanted to go back to the community improvement plan for just one quick second. And just to remind council that the County of Middlesex agreed to 50% of that cost up to up to 15,000, not 20. So I just wanted to point that out. And on the fire plan that the deputy mayor referenced earlier about maybe splitting it in half over 2 years, what is the actual cost? I know we were originally told it was 25,000, but I believe Chief Sewell corrected us that it could possibly only be 10,000.
Yeah, I'm not sure with that. Chief Sewell, if you'd like to respond to that, and then we'll go back to our deputy mayor.
Councillor Scholdice to Mr. Mayor. I think I was misheard through Zoom. I think I glitched the other day. I think the phrase I used that the master fire plan would give us a view at 10,000 feet. And some misinterpretation of that. And it's still the quote I've received in the past is $25,000. Moving forward, there is a community risk assessment down the road as well, which is legislated. But just to be clear, it was my phrase of an overview of 10,000 feet. It's still $25,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, followed by Councillor McGill.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm prepared to make a motion that we take $20,000 out of the accessible parking spot budget, that staff come back to us next year at budget time with a completed plan on moving forward with those accessible parking spots on the main street. And I'd also like to put $10,000 into the budget, remove and put in another, or in 10,000 into the budget for line painting on the main streets of our urban centers. So it's really just shuffling around $10,000 or taking out $10,000.
You're talking designated parking areas.
I am talking designated. No, what's your question now? The 10,000, Mayor Mayhew?
The main street runs north-south, and when you refer to painting lines on the parking areas, you're referring to lines running north-south and also lines running east-west to designate the space?
I'm asking that staff come back with a plan for next year's budget that will address accessible parking spots on the main street. Taking 20,000 out of that budget for this year. I think there's a lot of work that has to be done on that before we invest some money on that. And I'd also like to put $10,000 in to paint. Where'd my screen go? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I am. That's what I'm referring to.
I'd still like to put $10,000 into the budget to just paint lines on the main street and our urban centers for parking spots.
I think we're mixing motions here. I'd like to see those as two motions rather than one. I don't know what council feels about that. And before I go any further, I'd like Greg Storms to get involved in this if he would. Greg has put some thought in this. We've had some discussion. Greg, is there?
Point of order.
Yep.
Robert's Rules of Orders process says that we need to have a seconder before we discuss the motion.
That's fine. Seconder for the motion? Councillor Schuldeis? Noted. Greg, with regards to
excuse me for clarification, could you read the motion out? I want to make sure that I'm only seconding the first part of it, like this is going to be two separate motions.
Well, it's up to the person who moved it, but I would suggest two motions because we've tried to do this in the past with council when we combine two subjects in one motion, creates confusion. I'm very supportive of half of this motion, but I'm lukewarm on the other half. And that's why I don't like combining two subjects into one motion. If the mover of that motion would consider making it two motions, it's up to the mover. Would you consider that?
I have no problem doing that, Mayor Mayhew.
So let's talk about the accessibility first. We're moving it over 2 years, 20,000 each, in the 40,000 over 2 years, 20,000 a year. Councillor Schuldeis, that?
Yes, I will second that.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. Storms, if you could give your professional opinion on this, is there any advantage to the municipality by doing this?
Okay, so I also have to be careful, simply because the first thing I would comment on is, certainly this type of parking is essential in any downtown that you would have, but it does come with issues. The other thing I would agree with is that, the majority of people that use these spots are not necessarily how you would plan for the max. So, I mean, typically if you're going to put in one of these particular parking spots, you have to plan it so that the individual can park their own vehicle there, have a ramp unload them, and then they have complete access to the curb as well as, in the downtowns, our hope would be to all of the particular vendors that serve the community. But then I do agree that, from what the mayor's saying is that there are a whole number of people that can use these particular spots that don't require the maximum standard. That's the maximum provincial standard itself. So the other thing to consider is there's a couple of things. The CIP program, which, typically my experience with CIP programs is it does allow vendors and the municipality an opportunity for partnerships moving forward to do improvements to storefronts as well as accessibility to these particular stores. When I kind of look at just the downtown of Glencoe, and I apologize for that, but it will make the point. We see the post office with fully accessible building, but we also see, a large percentage of the buildings down there that are, that somebody who pulled up and was in a wheelchair would have trouble accessing those particular buildings. So I do think we're right on the edge here of having the planning in the right spot. And I certainly would support, another year to let some of this CIP direction unfold for the downtowns so that, if a vendor decides downtown that they want to do some storefront improvements and, part of that is to make their building more accessible, that the CIP program would participate right along with them to make that happen in our downtowns. And that would be available to all the particular vendors. So one of the reasons that we, that we didn't want to go downtown right away was that, we were probably just a little bit ahead of that particular CIP planning process itself. So like I'm 100% supportive of making this happen. And, certainly this motion would give us a little bit more opportunity to see how the downtowns unfold and sort of, if that's our strategy, then we put that out there. And, you know, it is a good investment to kind of moving forward. And, you know, I don't think the county is, the county would certainly be supportive of us moving forward in the downtowns. And, you know, the pricing that we did receive was from them. So I don't want to be seen as, you know, not for this, but I wouldn't want to put in these particular spots and then have people say, well, like, I want to change my store. Do you have a program in place so that we can, you know, support these type of parking areas? And at the same time, like I said, I think they're essential and we need to put money away to make this happen. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Greg, very much for that. I just remind council again that, you know, I mentioned I've looked at downtowns all my life. We have a C1 area. Our commercial area is that's the only commercial area I've got, C1 area. We do not have a strip mall on the north and south ends of Main Street. We do not have a little plaza like the plaza in downtown Strathroy, the Kenwick Mall. We are C1. There are no private parking spots in a C1 zone because each building is next to the other building. There is no land in between. A common firewall is what they have. We have been listening to the county planners, their engineers, and the public and the business people. And by moving that to the side streets mitigates much of the problems. It will allow for a bit more safety. And not only that, in conversations with Greg, our own guys could do a lot of that work too if they were on the side streets. Greg was mentioning, and of course we can get the county paid. But I have no problem with moving this over a 2-year period. In the last 47 years I was on the street, there was no parking to meet the needs of someone with a motor disability. So if I've waited 47 years, I'm sure I can wait another 2 or 1. Questions from council. Thank you, Councillor Shouldice, for your input. One more question, Mike. What do you got there? Go ahead, Councillor Shouldice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just wonder if we could get an update on the Wardsville Fire Hall parking lot status, drainage and fire halls or parking lot.
Yeah, this is out of order, the question, but we'll get back to it. But we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded, and then we're going to deal with this. Council, any further questions? Because there's another motion coming up about the fire plan. Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I like the idea of $20,000 for accessible parking, but I was wondering if I would rather have a much more simple motion, just saying that we would reserve $20,000 for accessible parking in Southwest Middlesex after a study had been done with the county accessibility coordinator giving his input to council too. I think this motion is a little too specific. It talks about parking on Main Street in Glencoe. It talks about painting lines on Main Street in Glencoe.
That motion, Councillor McGill, it was originally that, but we have divided that motion. We are only talking about handicap. Councillor Deputy Mayor Wilkins was kind enough to agree that her motion would be in 2 parts, and we will deal with her fire plan in the next part, or the parking lines in the next part. But we're talking about handicap spaces, and we will deal with parking lines on Main Street in the next motion if she wishes to put it forward.
Mayor,
we are talking about handicap parking only. We're not talking about Main Street parking lines on Main Street. That will be our next motion coming before the table. Yes, Council. Yes, Deputy Mayor, did I not read you right there?
No, you were fine. Absolutely, you're correct. And actually, Councillor McGill, when this comes back next year, it may very well be that the best place for these spots are on the side streets. I would prefer to see them on the Main Street, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and
so if you want to simplify that a bit, I'm fine with it too. Are you asking for a friendly amendment, Councillor McGill?
I would, if it just said, you know, $20,000 for accessible parking in Southwest Middlesex. I would be fine with that.
Mayor,
and I'll accept that.
Yeah, Councillor Shouldice, you seconded the motion. Would you be pleased with that?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, well, thank you very much, councilors. And Councilor McGill, I like simple. I think that was a very good suggestion. Before we call the vote, there's some hands up. Jill, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to read out the motion so everybody's clear on it. Is that all right?
Yes, and as amended, yeah. Mhm.
So that $20,000 be reserved for accessible parking in Southwest Middlesex, and that staff be directed to work with the county accessibility coordinator and county engineer to develop an accessibility friendly parking plan for council's consideration.
Thank you very much. Councilor McGill, I think that was your objective, and Councilor Wilkins and Councilor Scholdice, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, I'm sure you'll be in agreement with that. Last call for discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried, so you'll have to tweak there, Treasurer. Kristen, you'll have to tweak it a bit. And Mary Gay, there's a second motion that we haven't forgot about, and if you would like to bring that forth at this time, you certainly can.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I would like to put a motion forward that we reserve $10,000 in 2021 budget for painting lines, parking lines on the main streets in our urban centers.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that motion, and then we'll discuss it? Councillor Cowell has seconded the motion. Greg, I saw your hand up. I walk across that street 20 times a day, and I seldom look at the lines. I usually look to see how many cars are parked there, but go ahead if you'd like to comment on this.
No, just I'm kind of curious. Actually, that was part of my question, was that, when these would be defined, I would see that as something where, one person wouldn't take up 2 spots, which would sort of solidify more parking in the downtowns. But I don't, when I do go through, like, say, Glencoe, I mean, it seems to be, fairly decent parking, but in some cases it is, where you have somebody who's not maximizing the space. So this would work in my mind, because when I see lines, I kind of park in where the lines are.
Yep. And Greg, I just want to have it very clear that you understand the intent of this motion is not only to have lines running north-south, but to have categorical spaces as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we typically would paint, like I had said before, the county would paint those north-south lines itself. So we would be looking at just individual parking spaces defined by east-west lines.
Okay.
But I mean, typically people are going to park in those spots if you put them there. That's my experience.
Well, as long as that's fully understood by council. Go ahead, Councillor Cowell.
I second this motion so we could have these types of conversations. I'm not sure I'm ready for lines on our main street. I'm not sure I'm ready on our main street, especially if we're coming up with an accessibility plan. I really think the accessibility plan needs to come first, because if we decide to put lines on our main street and then we decide to put accessible parking on our main street, does that mean we have to change those lines now to put an accessible parking spot? Or does it mean that because we've put lines on our main street, we now have to not put accessible parking? So I'm torn on this, and I don't think one should have, for me, if I do support this, it's to put money into reserves for next year, because I really don't think it needs to happen necessarily this year.
Okay. Greg, would you like to respond to Councillor Cowell's comments? Firstly, the colors obviously are different, Councillor Cowell, in terms of identification, but the conversation as it is right now and has been accepted as being better planning and safer is the side streets. So we have to do a curb cut when we do those accessible parking spots. The curb has to be taken out, and it has to be a roll-up curb with asphalt. So, and that's what we were referring to on the side streets. But there was, it can be studied further, but there was agreement that by both the county and Public Works, our operations manager, that side streets would be perhaps a more efficient way to get it done and a safer way to get it done. But I agree with you. I have reservations about the planning process of it to make sure that we're not duplicating work or having to redo any work. But it's a very good point that you raised. Councillor McGill, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I would like to keep our budget increase or our tax increase down to 1%. And while this is a good idea, I think what we've been trying to do here today is find ways to take things out to get down 1%. And this is adding something in. And then there's some structural things we've talked about taking out, like repairing a roof and repairing a deck on a train station. I'm a little bit leery about deferring things that are actual structural issues that probably should be dealt with. Thank you.
Good point. Yeah. Okay. There, Greg, are you okay there? I thought I saw your hand flip up.
Yeah, quickly through you, Mayor Allen, I think that Councillor McGill makes it, those points are well taken. Certainly the structure of that roof needs to be looked at. I think if we decide that it can be evaluated and, a shingle roof at this particular point is something that we can move ahead with. And I don't think that that's a bad idea. The other thing is, I mean, I will kind of take us back to that train station again, and that, this is, if we're going to spend, money, this is the building that we spend money on. And I'm not sure we should sort of piece this together with the decking over there, because, even though the structure needs to work on it, the deck would hold up for 2 or 3 years, but once the deck is no longer or has a failure, we're going to be doing it anyway. So I would say that we keep the money in for that, and that we generate our money there into that building itself. So, the other thing I will, mention is that, as at tonight's council meeting, we're certainly going to be, council will have the opportunity to accept the proposal as far as the Parks and Rec master plan is concerned. And, that will sort of dictate, the final production of that plan will dictate the role of, the historical society and what the community wants to see in that. And, it will bring the library, the old library into conversation, as well as the train station. So, but I wouldn't want to see something damaged, because the roof failed either. And I don't think the train station's going anywhere. And the minute somebody falls through, a board on that deck, we're going to be, looking at replacing the whole thing anyway. So that's just my opinion on those two items.
The focus on the train station deck has been the stairs too, primarily. That's where some of the boards have become loose while people have been walking up. Councillor Vink, thank you very much for your patience there. Go ahead, Martin. You go ahead. I haven't heard from you. Go ahead, Martin.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Mayor Allen. I agree. We shouldn't be adding on anymore. I agree with Councilor McGill that we should try and achieve the 1%. And further, one of the items that I'd like to see removed is the bleachers for, and I agree with Kristen to remove that for $67,000.
Yep. No, that's it's a good point. Yeah. I think the dialogue with staff was we couldn't have accessible spots to make it easier for those with mobilities to park, and the bleachers as well. So if we were going to draw a card, we thought it would be best, in the best interest of the municipality, to go on accessibility. I saw a hand up. Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I appreciate that. I think we need to be aware of the fact that there are ratepayers frustrated with the parking situation in Glencoe and in Wardsville to some point, and I suspect Melbourne to some point. And when I say that, what I'm hearing is if they want to park in front of a building, a business, and go in there, they're often finding out that there isn't the parking spaces because people are not parallel parking. They are pulling in and they're taking perhaps 1.5 to 2 spots. So what the ratepayers that have been reaching out to me are saying that they often have to go further down the street or turn around at some point and go to the other side. There's also a problem with that because they find it very difficult to cross the street. So painting lines, I realize, is a $10,000 expense. But I think, as Greg said, it will solve some of the problems downtown. It's not going to solve a crosswalk issue. It's not going to solve an accessible parking spot issue. But I think it will resolve some of the parking problems that exist down in our urban areas today, currently. So $10,000 isn't a lot of money. I've suggested we take half out of the master plan for the firefighters, and that would be $10,000 taken out of the accessibility parking spot if we did put the 10 in for the lines. So I'd like all of you to take a minute to think about that. It's not a lot of money. I think it would probably solve a lot of the issues that people are finding. And it's just for something as simple as going to get the mail in the morning and the congestion on both sides of that street. And they're frustrated. They're having to drive around, wait for a spot close by. And I think that this would probably solve some of those problems. People would have to actually park in the designated spot. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a secondary benefit to that too, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. It kind of freshens up the look of the downtown in Wardsville and Glencoe as well. It cleans it up. I must say, and I know this will not be a very popular statement politically, but I've worked on parking committees in the past on Main Street, and the biggest detriment to parking on Main Street are shop owners parking on Main Street and taking spots that clients could use. And this is by far one of the biggest problems that we have on Main Street, Glencoe, is that property owners are parking their cars in front of their building that they own when they should be leaving that spot for their vendors and their staff. Of course, it's not just the owners, it's their staff. And they should have employment policies in place where employees have to park behind the building. And we had those policies in place in our business from day one, that if a staff member parked out there, they were asked to move the car. But it certainly would help. I think, is there any other questions on this? There's a mover and a seconder for this. Yes, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just wanted to say that I'll be voting against this motion, but I do think it's a good idea in the future. I just think we're putting the cart before the horse here. I think we really need to wait for the accessible parking plan and then move forward with everything.
Okay. Jill, how are we on this? Have we got a mover and seconder on this yet?
So you have Deputy Mayor Gay Wilkins as the mover and Councillor Cowell as the seconder. And if I could just get clarification on the proposal, if it's around reserving money or actually spending and undertaking the project this year.
It is spending the money. And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but if when a plan comes back for accessibility parking spots, this should not hinder the plan in any shape or form. Am I correct?
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, you obviously would have to, if you had lines there, even the way it sits right now, you may have to erase some lines, take some lines off the roadways. I mean, that does happen. So it's not impossible to do, especially in this particular case.
Thank you. I'd like a recorded vote, please, Mayor Mayhew.
And I just don't want to miss any councillors. If we could go with Councillor Cowell first and followed by Councillor Crothers.
Is this the type of thing that could come out of OCIF funding because it's related to roads? That's the road one, or gas tax, one of those infrastructure-y ones.
Yep. Greg or Jill would be best capable of answering that. Good question. Greg, you want to take a shot at that?
No, I think Kristen could take a shot at that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Kristen. Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
I would have to look to see if there's, I have not ever seen that as a category in it. I don't want to give you a hard answer on that either way.
Okay. Kristen, good question, Krista, but you may not get an answer on that, but it was a good question. Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
Yes, just more out of curiosity on if it were to be that the Excel be the parking spots for on the main street, what's the size required for each spot compared to a regular parking spot? I don't know the numbers. Do they take one spot or two regular spots? The accessibility parking areas.
County have those criteria, and that was part of the reason why we had to do that curb cut. The thing was they have to take up the brick, if you remember, on the street light program in order to do wiring. And we were going to do the curb cut and the asphalt for cost efficiency. The county are going to be there looking at the asphalt aspects of it. We have the bricks out. Horizontal drilling will commence. It was kind of putting ducks in a row, so to speak, that according to Mr. Traney, the engineer, he said it would be, and in discussions he had with Greg, that it may prove advantageous. It's not necessarily has to be, but it may prove advantageous to sync it together. As I recall from the conversation I had the day that Greg and Mr. Traney and myself were in my truck looking at the targeted areas.
Yes, I'm just referring to the lengths required. Would it be the length of?
Exactly. I know
that was all.
I know that we
That's
were
all I was wondering.
Through you, Mary Ellen, they are bigger spots, because you have to have, and it is a provincial standard, so they tend to take up more than just one spot.
Thanks.
Okay, Council, it's a subject that deserves lots of discussion, and I think the first motion was extremely effective for the municipality to split that. Now we're talking another issue on the Main Street. We've been asked for a recorded vote on the parking spots on Main Street. Bill, I'll hand it over to you and you can call it at your pleasure.
Sure. Okay, so this is for designated individual parking spots, $10,000 to be raised for this year and for the work to be started this year. So Deputy Mayor Wilkins?
Yes.
Mayor Mayhew?
Yes.
Councillor McGill?
No.
Councillor Carruthers?
Yes.
Councillor Cowell?
Yes.
Councillor Vink?
No.
Councillor Scholdice?
No.
And the motion carries with 4 votes.
Motion carries with 4 votes, 3 against. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. Lots of discussion on that. And I'm not sure how Councillor Bartlett would have voted on that. I didn't hear, but we wish him well. Kristen, I know in order to achieve that goal that you mentioned to Council, we're looking at page 7 of your slide, the rec master plan. We've dealt with the accessible parking, the others in there. Council, if you want to focus on that, or if any discussion towards any of these subjects you wish to bring to Council's attention, by all means do so. I think this is the list that Kristen and staff have asked us to focus on. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Mary Gay mentioned about the fire master plan. I would be willing to second her motion or make that motion to reduce it down to 12.5 and put that in reserves for the project to be done next year. And of course, if we do receive some funding that could allow it to go forward, staff can always come back.
Okay.
I'll second that. Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. And we'll certainly open this up to a discussion and Chief Schul, you'll be a part of this, I'm sure. Thank you very much for your presence. Any questions from council can direct to the chair, to our chief, or to Kristen. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Vink.
Yes, I'm not sure what that means by reducing the cost. Does that mean we delay it for a year to do the
Yes.
master plan?
Yes, we're only budgeting half of the amount so that the other half will not go on the tax levy. And next year, the other half will go on, Martin. So we're amortizing it over 2 years. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Yes, it does.
Council, feel free to put your hand up there if you have a question. Perhaps I can start when Chief Schul, this is a really tough one, so fasten your seatbelt, okay? All right.
All good. It's all good.
Chief, I think in terms of our fire department, the health and safety of our community and our firefighters are paramount. Is there any compromise by deferring this over 2 years as opposed to 1 year in terms of the relationship to the elements of safety and protection to both our community and our firefighters? I hate to burden you with that question, Chief, but that's what's on my mind.
Through council, through Mr. Mayor. At first, I'm a team player. I have no issues doing the wishes of council. At this point, after 6 years and me being relatively new to the area to come in, I thought it was poignant to look at the envelope of the fire department and see exactly where we want to move forward. The great news is you have a strategic plan. Greg's embarking on a rec master plan, hopefully, and they can all be seamless together. Obviously, it would look at the resources that we're allocating, overview of the health and safety. I would say as an outsider coming in, your fire department's in a great spot for me to come in and move forward with it, with the deputies as well as everybody else there. So that being said, there's actually could be twofold to this. There's a fire master plan, and then there's a community risk assessment. The community risk assessment is roughly about $15,000 and ish, and then the master fire plan could be done later on down the road, say next year. But the community risk assessment would give us a good basis, a good foundation to be able to springboard off to see where we want to go to next steps into the master fire plan. So in compromise, I would like to propose that yes, we could push off the master fire plan, but maybe focus with a community risk assessment moving forward, which would give us, like I said, some solid foundation to move forward. But again, I want to stress to council that there's no, at this point, and as I overlook the fire department, there's no contentious issues here, like closing a hall, laying off people, response, recruit retention. We're really good in that way. We have a lot of good people already there. So it's really to reiterate the good stuff that we've been moving forward and to have that strategic outlook so that we're going down the right road. So that's my 2 cents. From 12.5 to 15,000, that would be that we could start embarking on the project, but have the project over a 2-year plan. And I have no objection to that. And that would be a compromise on my part.
Just for the benefit of council, a community risk assessment would identify some of the hot spots in our targeted area. It would be railroad crossings. It would be chemical storage. It would be some of the older commercial buildings, things like that. Some of the agricultural elements of our community. Is that what that would entail, identifying things like that?
There is a legislative part to this that I believe they gave us, and I was I was working in London, so I was out of the fire chief chair for a bit, but I believe they gave us 5 years to complete back in 2018, if memory serves me correct. So So this would fall in that time frame, and then working in conjunction with that, and then our stakeholders, the OFM, and that sort of stuff. I think it would benefit the community with saving council some money to get to where they want to go this year, and we're still looking at the overview health and safety and wellness of the fire department moving forward to get a good look at it.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting proposal. Council, I would require the mover and the seconder, if they chose to take Chief Schul's suggestion there, that motion would have to be amended. It would be, you'd still be saving some money, but you'd be moving up the budget a couple of $1,000s. So that's something that the mover and seconder can consider. Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Al. Yes, I would like to make an amendment to the motion to raise it from 12,500 to 15,000.
Okay. And is this, we're going, okay, is there a seconder for that amendment? I was hoping it'd be a friendly amendment, but it looks like it's a formal amendment. Is there a seconder to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Schuldice, very much. Council, we will, is there any questions you'd like to ask Councillor Vink or Councillor Schuldice, or through the chair? Yes, go ahead, Jill. Yes.
So if I can just be clear on what the amendment is, and maybe I'll get this from Colin as well. The original motion was that 12,500 be reserved for a fire master plan to be undertaken in 2022. So the idea being that half is reserved this year and the second half be raised and used towards that fire master plan. But that you're recommending that 2,500 be included for this year's budget for the preparation of a community risk assessment. Is that correct?
Through Mr. Mayor to Jill, I believe what I was asking council to ponder was proceed with the master fire plan process, but put 15,000 aside, and then next year revisit the master fire plan portion. So we continue with community risk assessment as part of the envelope of that, and then come back next year with the master fire plan. So there'll be two separate things. That way we don't blur the lines over a couple years, 2 years.
Yeah, just Chief, I'm having a little difficulty with that. As I understood it, you proposed to proceed with a community assessment risk plan.
Yes.
For a budget of $15,000 this year.
Yes.
And so that would be in the 2021 budget, and to consider in future years the balance of the 25,000 goes toward the master fire plan. Is
right,
that correct?
And it's twofold, because we would be able to get that fundamental information quicker to see how far we need to go with the master fire plan. That's correct, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a mover and a seconder for the amendment, and I know Jill's trying to get clarification on that. So Councillor Cal, you're next. I see your hand. I just want to make sure that Jill is comfortable with the motion as she sees it, and we'll vote on the amendment. If it fails, we go back to the original motion. If the amendment passes, then
so one of the things that I've noticed is that sometimes our motions are a little too narrow, and as a result, it pigeonholes us. And I'm not against the 15,000 that Councillor Vink is suggesting. So if we wanted it to be a friendly amendment, as long as the deputy mayor was fine with that, I'm fine with it. But I would even suggest that we set it aside as a line for a plan. Okay. And then the deputy mayor then the chief comes back to us with a report based on what kind of plan. he wants, because I totally understand. You've been with our organization about a month, and my whole thought process behind splitting this up was to give you more time in our community to understand specifically what you think we need based on your experience. So if everyone's fine with that, I would be content to put $15,000 aside for a plan. A plan, whatever plan you come back with, and then we approve that when you come back with a report.
I tried to attain all rules of order here, and Councillor Cowell, I appreciate your suggestion, and I like friendly amendments, but there is a mover and a seconder, and already. Do you want to proceed with that, Councillor Vink and Councillor Scholdice, or do you want to withdraw the motion? I will need some help from Jill, but we can vote on the amendment. I'm not worried about that. If you want to proceed as follows, it might be cleaner for Jill. Jill has to scribe this event, and I want to make sure that she understands what's being scribed here. I think council are approaching a very good decision. It's just a matter of doing the mechanics to get there. The chair has a mover and a seconder to this amendment. We're going to amend that $15,000 be allocated for 2021 in a fire community risk assessment. And I have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Vink, you're okay with that? Councillor Scholdice?
Yes.
Okay, and that'll give immediate benefit to both our community and our men. Okay. Last call.
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Last call for a question. One question. I'll call the vote. I don't think it's necessary to read it out. And Jill, you feel comfortable? Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment. Okay. All in favor of the amendment? Raise your hand. All opposed, the 6. All opposed. Noted. The amendment passes, Jill. That means the original motion fails. Do we have to bring that before council table again to vote on it to pass it, or does the amendment pass that?
So the motion to amend was passed, and now you vote on the main motion now that it has been amended.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We have a main motion before us. It is same as what the amendment was, of course. We're going to open it up for questions. Councillor McGill, I see your hand. Go ahead, Mark.
Just to be clear, I originally talked about reserving money, but now the way this is worded, could this money be spent this year after it was brought back to council?
Well, we have saved $10,000, Mark. We've gone from $25,000 down to 15 this year. Okay, and Kristen, if I'm wrong, note it to me, but I believe we had $25,000 in the budget for a fire master plan.
But it could be spent. It could be spent this year, I think.
No, and we changed. That subject's gone. We have gone to a risk assessment plan, which is a different document for and it is 10,000 off the original price. And we're looking at the other plan for 2022-23. And our chief is nodding his head, Mark.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we have come ahead. Kristen can deduct $10,000 from the monies that would be required from the original motion. Mark, I don't want to leave you hanging there. If there's anything Jill can clarify for you, or the chief, I'm not going to walk away from you, Mark, until you're satisfied. But if the chief can help you, Mark, in any degree there, certainly put the question through the chair.
I'm just having a little trouble understanding what we're doing here. Is the community risk assessment plan something completely different? I thought it was part of the fire master plan.
I'm going to let the chief answer that because he's more qualified than I.
Councillor McGill, through Mr. Mayor, there's a master fire plan and there's a community risk assessment. But with the needs of council and the community, I put forth as a compromise to see how far in this process we really have to go. The community risk assessment is a legislated document that was back in 2018 that the OFM requires municipalities to have in place within, I believe it was 5 years. So what to kind of fulfill the ask of council with the $10,000, community risk assessment isn't a fulsome master fire plan, but it will point us in the right direction. And then moving forward, it will give us a good strategic positioning to how much we have to delve into the fire department in our community, which again, I stated, you know, in my eyes, it's in good shape and we're moving forward, but they're two separate, and you're quite right. But what this ask of council from me was so that we can proceed with a strategic document moving forward and see how wholesome and fulsome we need of a master fire plan over the next couple of years. So it's really a step process to alleviate some monies from council and the taxpayers, but yet move the program forward. So I hope that answers your question, and it saved the $10,000 to move forward for this year.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Chief. I think it is good discussion, and Chief, I think your suggestion is very good. It enhances the safety of both our community and our department. And I just want to remind council from your conversation, Chief Sewell, it sounded like we're mandated to do this. Is that correct?
I believe back in 2018, there was a few items that the OFM came forward with, and one was having a community risk assessment. So it's very timely. It makes us I feel I like to have a progressive fire department, not we're always reactive to the calls of the public, but in the administrative area, I like to be aggressively progressive and make sure that we're on the radar of all the legislators, the OFM and the Ontario government for the good reasons, and not that they're looking at us that we need to be playing catch up. So that's why I put that on the table as a compromise for today.
Thank you. And Jill, go ahead.
So Chief Sewell was acknowledged that this is due 2024. So July 1st, 2024 is when every municipality that existed in 2019 is required to have a community risk assessment. And I think that the idea is that the risk assessment information can be used to help inform the overall fire master plan. So the information that is gathered through this process that will be undertaken this year in 2021 will help to prepare for the future, which may result in less of a cost perhaps, and maybe in a fire master plan for future dates. So it really did amend. I think the proposal was more of here's a different option for council's consideration versus amending that original reserving funding. But I think that was Councillor McGill's kind of question. But if everybody's clear on that, that the direction is let's proceed with initiating in 2021 the development of a community risk assessment plan.
Yep. That, from Councillor McGill's question and the answer you got from Chief Sewell, that was my understanding, and I believe Council are fully informed on that. And Council, while we're doing our discussions, Jill, I can see her on my screen. She's doing her homework, and our homework, I should say. And thank you, Jill, very much for that clarification. Are there any other questions? Okay, we will. We have the motion has been amended. The amendment has been accepted. We are voting on the motion that we will allocate not $15,000 to a community risk assessment for 2021. I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Noted. Motion's carried. Jill? Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, did I see your hand up, or perhaps it was just a late vision? Sometimes the computers are slow. Is there a question, Mary Gay?
So did we not vote on that twice, Jill?
We voted on the amendment first, and then we voted on after the amendment was passed, which defeated the original.
I realize that, but wasn't the original motion different than the amendment?
I believe, Jill, following your instructions, I'll let you answer, Deputy Mayor. Yeah.
So I'll just process-wise, typically when you're making a motion to amend the main motion, you're just changing one part of it. You're not altering the structure. So if you said we were going to proceed with buying 15 red benches, a motion to amend would say something like, I'd move that we amend this to say we'll buy 15 blue benches. So this one kind of, I think that was the struggle, is that it was sort of two different ideas into the amendment. That's why I was asking whether or not everybody was clear, but that's council and the chair's prerogative in terms of the process of accepting motions.
And the chair
Fine with that.
consulted.
Let's move.
The chair consulted the CAO after the amendment was passed. Councillor Cal, I saw your hand up. Go ahead, Krista.
I'd like to move that we pass the air compressor as part of the budget, so that way we can be done with fire if we need to be doing this.
Okay, yeah. I'll take a seconder for that, and then I'd like some explanation from Chief Sewell on that air compressor.
I don't need explanation. We've heard lots about it. I just want to be like, hey, we're done fire.
Just for, the breathing apparatuses of the firemen, I understand. Is there a seconder for Councillor Cal's motion? Councillor Vink, are you seconding that? Councillor Vink, are you seconding that motion? Okay, thank you, Martin.
Yes, I am, Mayor Allen.
Gotcha. Okay, yes, and Council, if there's any clarification required, I want to make sure, the chair wants to make sure you know what you're voting on. And as I understand it, this is a part and parcel of the breathing apparatuses of the firemen. And I'm seeing a nod from Chief Sewell.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll make it very short and sweet, not to prolong this. It does need some maintenance right now. However, it is still working. I have been in consultation, as council wishes, from another a meeting to make sure our wants for dollar wise is in the ballpark. And my understanding that yes, we are in the ballpark for the wants and for this particular project. So I will leave it at that, and not to belabor the subject.
Thank you very much. Councilor, last call for questions. Yes, Mark, go ahead. Councilor McGill.
Yeah, I know we covered this once before, but I just want to make sure I knew the answer. How old is the compressor that we currently have?
January, oh, sorry. Councillor McGill through Mr. Mayor. It was installed in January 1995. I got to go back because I got it text to me the last meeting we had, and I believe it was January 1995, and it was bought in 1994, and it was actually moved from the old station.
Okay. All right, that's clarified. Last call.
And what's the dollar amount? I didn't hear the dollar amount again.
I believe,
for the new one.
Councillor McGill, through your Mr. Mayor, I believe it was 55,000 we set aside for that.
53 is what the budget line says.
My fault.
That's what
I stand corrected. 53.
That should be in the motion then.
Yep, 53. I stand corrected.
Okay. Okay. Good. I'm going to call the vote. We're past our time, and I want to just refocus on one aspect of Kristen's presentation there. Following this, everyone understands the motion. As for the compressor, all in favor? All opposed? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Cowell, very much for bringing that to our attention. We have deviated a little bit from Kristen's presentation here. I just want to go back to, again, or slide 7. Kristen, I can hand the conversation over to you. Do you have any concerns? Staff did make a recommendation to get down to 1% tax rate. With these additional deductions that we have made through councillors' engagement, would we break that 1%? Are we?
Not,
is that the
not
direction?
quite. We're at 1.4
Okay.
right now. We would need to come up with 39,424 more dollars. But I could offer that if we were to approve the increase in the rec master plan and the train station and agree with the removal of the bleachers, that almost, and then I could reduce the sidewalk reserve, the additional sidewalk reserve by 3,000, and that nets out to 0. So then basically we're just left with the Historical Society roof and the app and parking.
Okay, that's good, and thank you, Kristen. We're going to make you earn your money in the last 10 minutes here, if you don't mind. So I appreciate that. Councillor Cowell, go ahead and ask that question. Go ahead, Krista.
Oh, I just, I know this is going to make things probably worse, but I think that we should approve the rec master plan, especially, I don't know what else is going to happen before anything else happens, but I know that we are talking about it in the next meeting, and I think it would be beneficial to know whether or not it's been approved in the budget. So I'd like to make the motion that we approve the rec master plan increase of, now, just a quick question. I think we'd put $30,000 in reserves, and the information that we've received is that the total amount would be 50. So my question is, how come we're seeing 30?
I'll let Kristen answer that.
Yes, I had, yes, we did set aside 30 to come from the efficiency and effectiveness funding. However, some of the other amounts that we had allocated to come from there were higher than we had planned. So it's either we can raise it this way and replenish that, or I can move it from a separate reserve fund account if you'd prefer.
I'm just confused. Like, I thought we were saying the rec master plan is going to cost this much. We put it out to tender. It's come back as 50. What are the additional $10,000 that are being attributed to the rec master plan?
It was to come from the efficiency and effectiveness funding, but other things that were to come from that funding were over budget by the 10,000.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Darn. Okay, well, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the rec master plan increase of $30,000.
Good point. Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Good suggestion. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. We have a lot of asset investment, a lot of investment in that. I think it certainly has been a subject this council has talked a lot about. And we can proceed with that discussions, and I'm sure you're going to direct those to Mr. Storms. Council, go ahead and ask any questions regarding this rec master plan. Greg, what's the timeline on this? Greg, what are you looking at? Reasonably soon?
Through you, Mayor Allen, if council approved this project, it would start immediately, and the due date for completion would be the end of June in 2020.
Okay, so it's right about mid-year, right? Councillor Scholdice, go ahead. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I realize we have talented staff here. I wondered if there's anybody in the office that could perform some of this work on this plan so that we could whittle the costs down.
Yeah, it's always a possibility. Greg, I know you'll work closely with these planners on that. What's your answer to that?
Through you, Mayor Allen, certainly staff will work hand in hand with the consultant with regards to the production of their particular plan. One of the real assets to having a consultant come in like this into the community is they will have a completely objective view, whether they're speaking with general public, whether they're speaking with council. whether they're speaking with all our interest groups. My experience is that our role in these particular type project is to provide as much resource information as we possibly can. But this price will be firm from this group. And, they have the expertise to bring demographics, to bring, hopefully council had an opportunity to read the RFP that was put on the market, because this particular organization responded 100%. Their technical part of their proposal was outstanding. So, I really wouldn't want to, try to piecemeal this. Certainly we have a role, and that role we'll play, which is to provide as much information as we can to the consultant, make it easier for them. But this price is firm from them. And I don't think I could go back to them and say, well, if we do this, can we have some money off? Simply because I went through an RFP and I had 6 submissions. And I don't think I'm in any position to just kind of change the RFP that went out, nor the submissions that came back to us. Particularly.
Was this the lowest submission we received, Greg, or was it was the lowest accepted? Or
through you, Mayor Allen, the lowest was not accepted. If you read the RFP, the evaluation, and certainly my staff report tonight tells you how it was evaluated.
Or higher.
Yeah. So, it is a combination of price plus the actual technical ability of the company to perform the task.
Further to
that tonight.
The scoring was higher on that. Councillor McGill, I see your hand, but first, Councillor Vink, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Allen. To Greg, you did mention about demographics, but I realize in Southwest Middlesex, we have a fairly large population, say over 60, 65. And I know a lot of them really all for exercise, they walk. And that's pretty well it. And so is that going to be in the master plan and that sort of thing reflected?
Through you, Mayor Allen, that's exactly what's going to happen to us. I think if, our demographics is such that, the communications they have with the general public, the user groups, whether it's senior groups, etc., you will find recommendations that come out that, basically will, we will then produce facilities in the future to accommodate those demographics. I do totally agree with you that, walking is a big part of the seniors' day. I went through this in other municipalities, and I can pretty much guarantee that will be addressed in the Parks and Rec Master Plan moving forward. How we can provide walking opportunities for seniors, whether we get a walking track in place, that type of stuff. So that's what I expect to come out of that. And like I had mentioned earlier, what's nice about having an objective view is that we get somebody that comes in that's really looks at it and brings everybody together and tries to determine the long-term vision of what type of facilities we want in recreation and what our recreation programming should look like for the future.
Councillor McGill, followed by Councillor Cowell. Thank you, Greg. I'm glad I got to move you forward. I can give you a maximum of 14 minutes. I got to be out of here by 6. Councillor McGill, go ahead, followed by Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I will support this motion and this plan. I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming in the coming year. And so we have to have some sort of a plan as to how we want to proceed. And if we approve this now, it sounds like from what Greg said, it will be by June. And that's probably the kind of time frame we need to proceed with this.
And just my last comment, Alan, just quickly, if I could, through you, is just, if you looked at the RFP, there are 4 times where this particular group must report back to council as part of the production of the plan itself. So it's extremely important that the elected officials are part of that process at this level, and that was included in the RFP.
That's great, and I know that there's councillors with us that will be very pleased with that. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I just wanted to put out there, we, as on the rec committee, got a lot of information about how this rec master plan would work and who they would be reaching out to. So people like the App and Museum group would be included. People like the Museum Historical Society in Glencoe, any of the service groups that use our buildings, including the one in Wardsville. And it was to say, is there something our community or your community that you're working in is missing? So it was really interesting to see the RFP. I researched the company, and I know we're not voting on the company, but I'm hopeful that this will mean that the only rec option we have for our seniors isn't just walking, and that this will come out of this. And I think a better example was Greg talked to us about, and there was over 100 action points that were provided to say, this is how you can develop more recreation in your community. And I'm really hoping that we can see that, because one of the things we hear all the time is we have this rec, but it's not being maximized. How can we maximize it? How can we get more use out of it and more benefit from the community? And I think this is a great way to do that.
Good point. Okay, I think we've well discussed the motions before us. It's been moved and seconded. One more question. Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor?
Sorry.
Passed unanimously. Council, just to advance Kristen's cause here, she's worked so hard at this. I just want to advise council that one of the reasons the bleachers came out, was discussed to come out, was because of the recreation master plan. Before we do something with the arena and the buildings in that vicinity, the area, the parking lots and that, the entrances, that it was thought that, that bleachers, although it is part of the Agricultural Society and we're not expropriating the bleachers, but they really are part of the recreational community, so to speak. They're not ours, but they're kind of part of that recreational community. That's why they were considered to be left out. Kristen and Jill, do you need authorization from council to accept that bleachers are taken out of the budget to move forward?
Is this a motion?
No, it's not. I'm just asking a question. In order, this is not a motion, but you require a motion for that. Is that from council? You require a motion for the bleachers to be taken out of the proposed budget. Is that correct? If they're to be taken out.
Mm-hmm. So Mayor Mayhew, there's probably a couple of ways you can do this. If there are additional changes that you'd like to see or council would like to see, you can continue to discuss them. Or if the changes that have been made tonight are the changes you'd like to see, then you could just accept the rest of the recommendations that staff have presented already.
I think rather than I'd like to see discussion on that. We're winding up near 6 o'clock. It's about 12 minutes to 6. We have made some progress. Kristen can come back to us and tell us where we are in terms of the tax rate increase with the recommendations we've made. She has.
I'll tell you where you are right now, if you'd like.
Yep.
You're at 1.7.
Okay.
We need to find 69,000 more.
I think maybe, council, what's your wish? Do you want to proceed or you want to take your time on this and reflect on that? Councillor Vink, go ahead, and then followed by Councillor Cal.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Kristen just said 69,000, so I'd like to make a motion that we remove the bleachers for 67,000, and then we're only 2,000 away.
Okay. All right. I'm good. The chair has to recognize Martin's motion. Councillor Cal, I'm going to get to your question. I saw that your hand up, but because the motion's been made, I'll ask for a seconder, and Councillor Cal will have first chance to speak. Seconded by Councillor Crothers. Councillor Cal, go ahead there.
I was just going to ask that we defer because there are some other items I'd like to discuss in general, and some of it goes back to what Councillor Scholdice brought forward at the beginning of this meeting. So before we made any decision or had any more discussion, I mean, there's 10 more minutes of this meeting, and this conversation could go on longer than that. And I know some people, unlike me, didn't eat their dinner during the meeting. So I'd like to defer this until another meeting. I know we don't have one scheduled, but this has been one of the very first meetings where we've kind of had the opportunity to talk as counselors about what we'd like to see cut and removed. And while I don't necessarily agree that we need the bleachers, I would like to see, if we have a rec master plan, some rec funding available. And like I said, I don't think we need $67,000. I agree with Councillor Vink. I just am not sure that's where it all could be cut from. I know we are expected to see some more COVID funding, and we've put in a grant for that. And there's money that has been allocated, for example, the rooftop. And I'd just like to see a little bit more discussion. I have questions, and I don't want to have a blanket, oh, we cut this, without having some of those questions answered. So that's my proposal to council, is that we defer this motion and this topic to another meeting where we start the day a little more fresh.
Okay, the chair has to recognize all the opinions of council, and we certainly appreciate yours. Councillor Vink, you've made the motion, seconded by Councillor Crothers. Do you wish to defer, or do you wish to proceed? Councillor Vink, ask your question.
Yes, Mayor Allen. Yeah, I wish to proceed because Krista mentioned about the extra funding. That's the time that we could bring this back up about the bleachers or some other program. When we have extra funding, there's nothing saying that next year at a council meeting that we cannot bring a certain situation back up.
Yeah, that's true, Martin. It is a roadmap that can be changed or added to. Councillor Crothers, just before we proceed, do you feel comfortable proceeding with the seconding this motion?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with that? Okay. Questions, council?
I have a question.
Yep. First, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Cal, and followed by staff. Council first, staff will follow. Yep, go ahead.
Some of what prevents us from spending this on recreation would be the fact that many of these funds are specific to things that are related to COVID expenses. So if we did receive funding, like Jill suggested, 31,000, or what Councillor Scholdice brought forward, it's operational, and this project is a little bit more capital. And so that's my struggle, is that if we did end up, if we are going to cut things from our budget that could potentially be related to funding opportunities, we need to make sure that those funding opportunities line up. So for example, we wouldn't be able to use it for rec. We couldn't use it for rec. Whereas if we did trim from the budget the rooftop, then we could use that funding that's being applied for. I know staff has an idea in mind, but it doesn't sound like they've necessarily shared that with us. So this is my thought, is that if we can trim from something that there is proposed funding down the channel, that's where we should be trimming from. Not just recreation. And again, I'm not saying we need bleachers. I would have much preferred that line say rec reserves, so that when Greg has his action items come out of the rec master plan, we can say, you know what, putting a Wardsville basketball rec thing up is a much better idea than bleachers. Or that park doesn't necessarily, you know, maybe that park as a recreational center needs a bleacher and a netting around its basketball net. So we'll spend that money there rather than 10 sets of bleachers in the municipality. So I'd like to get away from this piecemeal project that has happened in the past and move forward with the new plan of having actually a plan. And so when we say we just cut it randomly, I'd like to see it cut from somewhere where we anticipate receiving funding. That's all.
Greg, if you can give any clarification to this. We have a firm mover and a seconder. They know what the motion is to take the bleachers out of this budget. Did you want to address that, or Councillor Cal's comment?
Yeah, I will take you back to the previous budget meeting that we have, and this number did come forward from the previous rec and facilities manager. When I did the work in the field to try to figure out, like, where would these bleachers be used and replaced, there wasn't anything really firm out there. So, I have no issue with deferring this particular project at this particular point, because I would want to generate our activity like this into our well-used areas rather than, having a set of bleachers sitting somewhere and they never get used. The other thing is the environment is changing with COVID as well. So, us providing bleachers, in the middle of COVID or even in next summer is going to be difficult. But at the same time, I know exactly what Councillor Cowell is saying, is that if we do have some grant money or monies that we can free up, we will have to address this at some point. And, certainly it will be part of the conversation of the Parks and Rec Master Plan as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Council. We'll call the motion. Everyone's had a chance. Yes, Councillor Kell, if you question, last question.
I'd like to amend the motion that we don't necessarily get rid of the total, but that we reduce it down to $30,000.
Is this, I will have to ask, is this a friendly amendment you're making? I'll have to ask those, or is this a formal amendment?
I'll ask them if they'll take it friendly.
Okay, will you take it friendly, gentlemen, or you want to original motion?
Never hurts to ask.
No, Mayor Allen.
Okay, then I'm making a regular one.
Okay, just need a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Wilkins has seconded amended the motion that half of the amount be called.
No, not half. That it would be 30,000 kept, and so that the additional 37 would be removed from this year's budget.
The numbers, okay? 30,000 capped and 37,000 removed from this year's budget is the amendment. It's been duly moved and seconded. All in favor of the amendment?
Excuse me, Mayor Allen. Can we have a discussion on this?
Yes. Yeah. You go ahead. Yeah. No one's had.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor Allen.
Yeah. No.
Thank you.
It's my.
I haven't got the reserves in front of me. Kristen sent us a list of reserves, and I believe we do have a rec reserve already with a fair bit of dollars in there already.
Kristen's nodding her head. I think that's affirmative. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up right now, but you have to keep in mind that a lot of the funds that are in there are projects from previous years that have been reserved to this year. So the expenses are in there, but the income is going to come back in. But so for the uncommitted reserve income, or sorry, reserve balance is about 453,000.
Uncommitted.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes,
Kristen, that includes our current grant application that we have in right now.
That was my question.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kristen. Yep. Okay. That's been clarified. Last call.
Sorry, that was just to add to what Greg Sturm said.
We're voting on the amendment. Are we voting on the amendment to this motion? Jill, Chair's going to call the vote. Kirsta, last question. This is the last question. Do you have a question or a statement?
It's just a statement to go back to what Mr. Storm says, was the fact that we have a grant out there and none of us know whether or not we will move forward with that grant. However, if we do, we will be on the line for at least 25% of that. And it's a $2 million project. I am really terrible at math, but I feel like that's close to $500,000. Please correct me, someone better at math. And that would eat up every cent that we have in reserves and would not allow us to do any additional projects if we were to receive that grant. So that's all I'm trying to say is, yes, it looks like we have a healthy reserve, but one major grant support, and that would be all gone.
Krista, I'm gonna, could you respond to that statement? It was fairly strong. Is there any truth in that?
Yeah, you are right, but I have planned on debenturing this. So we weren't going to pull the whole amount out of reserves. We were just going to debenture the remaining 685,700 over 20 years, rather
Okay.
than just drain the reserve.
Yeah.
So we'll be raising about 36,100
Yeah.
each year.
And we have fees, user fees that'll finance that to some degree as well. Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, we're voting on the amendment. There's been a lot of conversation here. I'm going to call the question that we're voting on the amendment that we proceed with.
Mayor Mayhew, if I could, just one quick question.
Yes.
If I could, Jill or Greg, could you remind us what's actually in the agreement with the Agricultural Society when it comes to the bleachers?
So my understanding is these are our bleachers. They're Southwest Middlesex's.
Is there anything in the agreement with the Agricultural Society that says that they are our responsibility and to be maintained in a safe manner? Anything to that?
Jill, I think they're on the ag land, but there are bleachers, I believe. Is that correct?
They are our bleachers. I'm not going there. I'm asking if there's anything in the agreement between Southwest Middlesex and the Agriculture Society that references those bleachers and who they belong to and what type of condition they must be kept in.
I don't know the answer. Just for you, Jill may know the answer to that question, but I don't know that direct answer right now, Deputy Mayor, but certainly I can find that out. I mean, that's one of the issues that I have right now with the bleacher situation.
Okay, thank you very much. Just for clarification, I appreciate that.
The chair is going to identify.
I'd rather see this actually deferred until we actually got an answer to that question.
We have an amendment. We're going to vote on the amendment. Councillor Cowell, last question. No other discussion after this, okay?
It wasn't so much a question, but someone from when we first had the bleachers come up as a topic, someone from the Fair Board did reach out to me and let me know that it is our responsibility to maintain them in a good working order for their fair and for the Midway. So if they need something done on the bleachers, if they make a complaint saying that the Midway bleachers, now I know this money could be used anywhere, but if the Midway bleachers are not in good working order, it is our responsibility to maintain them if we receive a complaint.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell.
Just refer to Greg's statement, which I thought was very interesting, that in the future, should we decide to build new bleachers, they may not even be located there. We would do a study to see where they would be best accommodated. You know, hypothetically, it could be near the swimming pool or somewhere or something like that. But anyway, Council, we're voting on an amendment. The amendment, Jill, could you read it for the clarification of Council? There's no more discussion.
This is to amend the main motion. So instead of removing $67,000 from the Recreation and Facilities 2021 capital budget, but amend it to reserve $30,000 for bleachers in the 2021 capital budget.
Okay. Thank you, Council. The chair has allocated very much time and has entertained all questions that have been asked. Most of the councilors have participated in this. I'll call the question now. All in favor of the amended motion, please raise your hand. All opposed to the amended motion?
We're just voting on the amendment, right?
Yep. The amendment does not pass. We'll go back to the original motion. We'll go back to the amendment was defeated. We'll go back to the regular motion. Discussion is already commenced on this. All in favor that the bleachers be struck from the proposed budget, raise their hand. All in favor? One, two, three.
I think Martin is frozen.
I think Martin's frozen. He made the motion.
I think Martin's frozen too. Yeah.
So Mayor Mayhew, you voted yes.
I can see.
So
Yeah.
then the motion passes because you have
Okay.
4 of 7.
Martin, froze up on us, Martin. Okay, the motion passes. All right, committee
Oh, okay, well, I can see myself.
Yeah, I can hear you, Martin. Council, thank you very much. Everyone on here has contributed a great deal to the process tonight. I want to thank Deputy Mayor, Councillor Cowell, Councillor Schuldice, ideas coming forward. And Martin, we appreciate your attendance at these meetings and your support for the rest of council on the budget talks. And the chair will move that the meeting adjourn. Thank you, Jill, very much. Thank you, Chief.
Wait a second.
Yeah,
Yep.
so if I can, we need a motion for the bylaw to confirm the meeting. And if we can put the reference to the letter if council wants, you don't need to make a motion, but with regard to the correspondence, but we can put it on a future budget.
Well, we do a motion to confirm the meeting. Is it?
If we're $2,000 short of a 1% budget increase, if we just decrease sidewalks and pass the budget, would we be done?
I don't want to rush council on that. If the council want to be more engaged in this in the coming weeks or after Christmas or into January, you can make that motion. We can see if it can come forth.
I make it.
Okay, so you want to take, you're instructing the treasurer to take a sum of money out of the sidewalk.
And yep.
To bring the effective tax rate down to 1%. Kristen, I'm
That
going
would
to have
also-
to ask Kristen, and I'll
That would also be approving the, we need 40,000 for the train station. Sorry, I was just thinking.
The Historical Society roof, though, would that give it to us?
Yes, I think so, yes.
That's a touchdown. Sorry, wrong sport.
okay, so yes, Councilor McGill.
I just feel this is a little too rushed. It's a little
Yeah.
bit after 6 already. I'd rather wait until January and have one more meeting to finish this off.
Yep. Council may want to go through the line book as well. Councilor Schuldice, go ahead. There is a motion on the floor. I'll have to ask for a seconder. I'll just advise council on this because Councilor Cal deserves the respect as a councilor. She's made a motion, and I have the chair is going to respect that. Councilor Cal, or Councilor Schuldice? I'm sorry.
Are
Mike,
you
yeah,
looking for a seconder or questions?
I was looking for a seconder on removing 3,000 from sidewalks. Councilor Cal has made that motion to bring us closer to that 1%. Mike, I don't think we're going to be there entirely, but we're moving in the right direction.
I'm not the one.
Did you want to second that?
No, thanks.
Okay, no problem.
My motion was to pass the budget, period. Like the
No,
recommendation was the train station and the historical roof and then the sidewalks to make the difference up. But if that's too much for you, I'm okay with that too.
And
I just feel there's,
yes, go ahead, Mike.
sorry, Mayor Mayhew. I just feel that we're rushing everything. There's so much still to discuss.
Yeah.
And I agree with Councillor McGill that we really should come back in January. Everybody can think about this, give it some thought and come back with.
That sentiment has been levied. Council, I'm going to ask for a seconder out of respect for Councilor Cal.
I withdraw the motion.
Okay, no problem. We have a confirming bylaw. Moved and seconded.
For second and third.
Okay, all right. And move first, second, and third reading. Okay. Jill, you okay with that?
I just need a seconder. I've got the deputy mayor's moved it.
Council.
Second it. I'll second it.
Councilor
Brothers. Thank you.
Council. All in favor? Thank you once again. You worked very hard, Council. I appreciate it. And thank you, Chief Sewell. Thank you, Greg and Kristen. Thank you very much. Jill, you're always there behind us. Thank you. We'll see you in
Soon.
in 53 minutes.